Something I hear from a lot of people is that they really love to use Procreate, but they're just not sure of a project that they can get stuck into to really get their hands dirty. So they follow along bits and pieces of tutorials, but they really just want a project that they can make their own. Well, today we're going to be working on something that you can personalize yourself. So we're going to create a floral lettering piece with a really dreamy watercolor background. This is really popular and you may have seen this lettering style around, but it's deceptively simple once you know how it's put together. So you might be comfortable already drawing from scratch, and if that's the case, go for it. I'm going to be using a floral elements pack. So this pack is going to allow me to import all the little different flower pieces and arrange them to make up the letter. We'll also be doing a really lovely dreamy watercolor background as well. If you have a watercolor set for Procreate already, go ahead and use those if you like. Otherwise, there is a master set of watercolors included. So I'm using all up 5 different products to make this project. You can be resourceful and use what you have available, or otherwise, if you want to follow along step by step, there is a bundle with these 5 products available thanks to Design Cuts, and it's 50% off. Okay, great. So let's make this letter bloom. So I'm going to start by creating a new canvas, and to do that I'm just tapping on the little plus in the top right hand corner here, and then I'm going to tap this little icon in the top right, and that brings us into the custom canvas settings. I'm on pixels, which is what I want, and I'm going to create 2000 pixels by 2000 pixels and make sure it's 300 dpi. And you'll notice we have 130 layers available. When I first did a test drive of this tutorial, I used 3000 pixels and I ran out of layers. So 2000 by 2000 is still good enough quality, but it will give you those extra layers. So just press create and then we're taken into the document. So the next step is to create the letter that we're going to use as a reference for our floral lettering. So I'm going to change my color just to black here, and you could draw the lettering yourself. Just for time, I'm going to just use the text tool. So I'm going to come into the actions panel, and then there's the add tab, and you'll see you can add text. Just by pressing that, I'll get the text tool, and I'm going to create an ampersand. And then I can just edit the style here. So when I tap in here, I can then double tap to select it, and you can flick through different fonts from here. So you could use a different style, but I know I'm going to use Times New Roman for this because it has some nice serifs. I'll just choose done to get out of there. And now I'm going to choose my arrow tool and just enlarge this. So make that quite big and put it in the center of the canvas. So just align that so it's pretty much in the center. And then we're going to just turn the opacity down. So to do that, you tap the N, and this top slider here is your opacity. So we're going to turn that right down fairly low. So I already have all the assets that I'm using all ready to go on iCloud. Something I want to mention just briefly before we get started, a couple of the packs that I'll be using today don't specifically say that they're made for Procreate. The files are compatible, such as the PNGs and the PSD files. So you have access to everything in this pack in Procreate. We're going to start creating our floral letter. So I'm going to go to my Actions tab, I'm on the Add panel and Insert a File. So this will bring me into my iCloud, and that's what I want. I've got a folder called Floral Lettering, and this contains all the files that we're going to use here today. So the first pack that I'm looking at is the Flower Power Botanical Illustrations. So just go into there, and then we've got these folders. So we go into Elements, PNG, and we want with background, because we don't want a see-through outline. We want them with a white background so that they can be solid and we can use a background later. So I'm going to start with quite a large flower here. I'm going to put that somewhere just in the middle. Now I'll move on and create my next file. So I'm going to work out from here. I'm going to insert our next file. So there's this other sort of flower here that I want to use next, and I want to actually have that under the previous flower. So in order to do that, you just take the layer that you've just inserted this on and pull it under that flower. So now that's sitting underneath, and I can just make that a little bit smaller. You don't have to be exactly on the lines. We just are using this for a general guide, the type itself. So don't worry too much about being exactly on the lines. It's good to try and keep it fairly close to the width so that you get that nice streamlined look to the font. You can rotate your shape just by using this little green node here. So you can just move that to where you want it, and you're good to go on to the next piece now. So I'll carry on and speed this up a bit. Right, so that's starting to look really nice in there. I'm then going to come in and fill these other areas as well. So I'm going to fill this area here now. So I'll create a new layer and go to Insert File, and I'm going to choose this flower here. So that's quite a nice one to just put in the middle of that sort of serif area as well. Now for these sort of serif stems here, I'll just bring in a couple of leaves for that area. So Insert File, and I know there's a couple of good ones that would work well here. So bring those in, position those, and then just move them behind the flower. And I'm going to duplicate that and use it on the other side. Just duplicate, move to your arrow, and then you'll see Flip Horizontal comes up in this little menu here. Just choose that, and that will perfectly flip it round and reflect it on the other side, and then move that into position. So now you've got that serif nicely formed there. Now I'm going to fill in this bottom serif area here. So I'll bring in another flower, bring in this flower here, position that sort of down there. So we've got this lovely ending here. I think I've got something nice I'd like to do with that I can show you Procreate's really good with. So if I import a leaf for there, there's one that's already sort of curving, so that one works really well. All we need to do is sort of get it around the same size, and then we'll do that flip horizontal again and move your canvas a bit so you can see a bit better. But we'll just position that kind of in a general way of the letter form. But what you can do as well is choose this warp, and now we have this mesh that we can mold the kind of shape. You can control the layer a little bit with these nodes. Note that it does kind of distort the image if you do it too much, but it hasn't distorted it in a bad way right now. But yeah, that works really well. So there might be a couple of places where you can use your distort tool to really make that leaf work perfectly. Something else I want to do just before we get too far along is I want to actually combine all these floral elements into the same group, so that if we need to move them around or there's any reason, it's just going to be a bit tidier. So to do that, you open your layers panel, and then you just want to select everything by sliding to the right. So you just move along each of your layers, sliding them to the right, and then group is up in the right hand corner of your layer panel. And now I'm going to name that, so I'll just name that Floral. And then you just open your group and carry on. And so whenever you add a layer or insert an image, it will be inserted into this group here. So now that's acting as if it's all one element, and it just makes it a little easier to manage, especially when you're using a lot of layers like we're doing in this project. Okay, so here we have our floral letter, the ampersand. So I'm going to come in and just close up that group so I can better see what the layers are, and just turn off the reference that we had before. So the next stage is to add our watercolor background. So as part of this amazing bundle, one of the packs was a watercolor pack from Trailhead Design. It's Master Watercolors. You may have seen it. It's a really popular pack. One of the reasons I chose to include this pack is because of the amazing tutorials that come with it. And there's loads of brushes as well. So this is a really cool pack. Today we're going to be using it mainly for the background. So I'm going to start by selecting a light peachy kind of pink color. And the hexadecimal value for this is ECA59D. So if you just enter those numbers and letters inside hexadecimal, which is under your value panel, you'll get exactly the same color. So I'm going to start by choosing a wash brush. So there's several different sets in here. We've got washes, drips, splatters, and then the watercolor brushes, blending brushes as well. So I'm going to come into the washes and I'm just going to choose something that brings a little color in, but we still get that real nice watercolor effect. So I think I'm going to go with number 7, and I'm just make sure I'm on a new layer. I'm just going to add that to the corner there. So you can see you get this really beautiful, realistic looking watercolor effect there, and that's really nice. I think I might just change the wash to number 5. So let's see how that looks. That's lovely. And then a couple of other spots as well. We might just change the pink to a light pink tone. Color is E1C1D8. So I'll change to background 3 for the corner, and we'll just sort of add that subtly in the corner. And I just want to put one little splotch behind the lettering itself. So I'll choose maybe light wash 2, we'll see how that goes, and we'll just add that to a couple of spots behind the lettering just to make sure that you can see that white and that really stands out. So I'll use wash number 4 just for the bottom area. So that's looking really good. I'm just going to drop the opacity on this top pink layer so that that tone works really well with the peach tone, so it's nice and subtle. Now the next step is we want to add a few gold hints around as well. So we'll move into the bronze gold foil pack. This was included as well, and this is really cool for loads of different kind of gold looking textures. So I'm going to bring in number 12 here, and then I'm just going to add a mask by tapping the layer. You get this little fly out, choose mask, and then invert that mask so that you can't see it. Now what we're going to do is just choose the watercolor brush washes just to bring in a bit of that gold in the background. So it doesn't have to be too much, so you get a little bit of that gold showing. That's looking really good. Great, so I also want to use this gold texture to bring in a bit in the design. So swipe to the left and choose duplicate, then just select that top duplicated version, move that above the floral layer. Now we're going to clear the mask. So you just tap on it, choose clear, tap on it again and choose invert. Now I've got a mask version on top of my layer. So I'm simply just going to zoom in and change, make sure my color is white and change to just like you just want a brush without any texture really. So I've got a monoline brush and I'm going to trace over one of the leaves so that we get a bit of that gold coming through in the design. So I'm just going to trace over the leaves now. There's our beautiful gold leaf. Now one thing I realized I just forgot, which is a nice little touch, is I want to go back into the floral elements, create a new layer and insert, go back into flower, power, botanical. We'll go into the elements of the PNG with background, and there's a little bee in here which is really, really cute. So I'll just make that quite small so he looks realistic size. And then flip horizontal so he's facing the flower and just tilt him a little bit. So that's really cute. Right, so we have our gold in place. We've got that coming through beautifully in the leaves. We've got a bit of it showing in the background, so that's working really nicely. So now we have another little touch that we can add. I'm going to insert and then move out of this flower power pack and into 110 flower petal elements. We're going into petal arrangements and there's these beautiful petals. So I'm just going to add a few of those around the design as well. They really suit this and they just look really sweet. They're very realistic. The photos are really high quality and high resolution. So we can bring in a few of these. They don't have backgrounds. They're just PNG elements that you can place around. So you could use these for a lot of purposes in different designs as well. So they work really well with this particular design. So I'll just bring in one more, another one of those peachy colored ones. And we'll flip that around. You see how easy it is to move out around elements in Procreate just by using your fingers. Cool. Okay, so we have everything in place. We've just got one final last touch. So there's this pack of paper texture brushes from Seamless Team. I've already installed mine. In the last part of this video, I'll show you how to install everything, get it up and running if you need some help there. When you use these brushes, they are transparent. So if I choose one now and just paint over the top, it depends what color you're using. I don't want to change the tone of this too much. I like the colors that are going on. So I want to keep the texture, the paper texture, white. But you'll see if you use that as white and then change the blending mode, you really don't pick up the texture fully. So I'll show you a little trick of how to use them on a subtle background like this. First of all, we just need to fill a layer with a dark grey. So I'll give you the value for the grey I'm using. It's 494949. So I'm going to flood a new layer with that. Make sure it's a new layer and then add a layer on the top. I'm going to choose my paper texture and I'm going to go for number 12. Now I'm going to make sure I've got a white ink selected and I'm just going to paint over the top, and it needs to be in one motion because of the transparency. You'll start to see a bit of a build up if it's not one smooth motion. So I'll just fill that entire layer and you get this lovely paper texture. So that's awesome, and it's seamless as well. So you could create this at any size in any document. Now I'm going to merge these layers and just change the blending mode here by opening that little N to multiply, and I'll drop the opacity slightly, and you can see you get this beautiful paper texture, and it looks, because it's sitting above everything, it looks even as if the ink is on this texture and the background. Everything nicely fits in and blends really well with that texture. Fantastic, so there we have it, the finished product. Before we finish up though, I just want to give you a quick tour of the 5 packs that are included in this bundle. So I'm going to go into my files here where I have them all downloaded, and we'll go through with the ones that we used in order. So the Flower Power Botanical Illustrations. So as I said, you don't need a Procreate pack to be completely just built for Procreate in order to use it. These elements are available in PNG and PSD, which are both compatible with Procreate. All the designs that we saw are available in outline, and then there's also silhouette, so they're filled in as well, which can look really nice if you mix the two. So as you see, that's the B silhouette there. You could use that with a different colored outline if you wanted to, so that you could actually fill these in. So they're really lovely. That was all the floral elements. Then there's also patterns in here as well. So inside the patterns folder, you'll find these gorgeous patterns, which are really useful for backgrounds. So you've got all sorts of lovely patterns. You've got these leaves here. You've got a bee pattern. There's over 285 elements in this pack, so it's really, really detailed. That was the floral elements that we're using in the lettering. Then we used our master watercolor pack. So I tried at least 6 or 7 different watercolors and found this to be the best. Just in terms of the brush selection was really great. So they've got all these brush sets that we looked at, the drips, the splatters, the washes, but also the tutorials. So these trailhead designers included these tutorials that make it so easy to understand what brushes have what effect. So this was one of the main reasons I went for this pack. The detailed instructions are just so handy, and it really shows you how you can bring to life your own illustration. So you can interpret, it tells you what brushes work for what areas, how to add splatters. It's amazing. And this pack is $20 on its own. So for an extra $7, you're getting 4 other packs. So really this bundle is excellent value. So that one was made for Procreate. We've also got the paper texture brushes, which were made for Procreate as well. So that's a really simple install. There's a brush set file. You just tap on that. For any of these Procreate brushes, if you need help installing, I have install instructions at bit.ly/install-brushes. Go to that address if you need any help unzipping zip files straight onto your iPad, and then it'll show you how to install brushes as well. So that'll be helpful with this pack. Then we had the bronze gold textures. So these were really beautiful as well. And these are just textures that you can import as image files. And like we looked at, we can use the mask, or you could use them as backgrounds themselves. So there's quite a few textures in here, and they're all kind of that gold and bronze look. So they're really handy as well. Very sparkly and pretty. And then finally, we have the floral flower petal arrangement. So these are the single petals that we used in our design. If you remember, we placed these beautiful petals around, and they work fantastic for other designs as well. So these photos are very detailed and they're available. These petals are in all sorts of different colors. Again, this pack isn't specifically made for Procreate, but because the elements are compatible with Procreate, it works perfectly. So there's also overlays. So the petals are arranged already and you just bring in the one file. So that can work really well for your designs as well. I hope this tutorial today fired up your imagination and you're excited to create your own beautiful floral letter. And don't forget, you can choose any letter of the alphabet and really make it personal to you. By spending more time in Procreate making these beautiful projects, you're going to get more and more comfortable and quicker at using it. So have lots of fun with that project, and I shall see you next time. Bye for now.